In the previous sections, we've seen all the tools that you may need to edit your pictures. So it's now time to talk about how we can actually keep them organized by using different tools, such as keywords. So we are going to talk about keywords first, and then see how we can archive all the files in the catalog. So let's see how keywords work. The Keywords tool is found in the Metadata tab. So you just click on the eye, which looks like an information icon, and then you'll find your Keywords tool just below Annotations. The Keywords tool is quite easy to use. It doesn't have a lot of sliders like other tools in Capture One. It just has one field. So in the field, you are going to describe your picture or enter keywords that will help find the shot. So let's try and describe this one. So it's a beauty shot, so let's type in beauty and then enter to validate the keyword. Then it has makeup, so let's add makeup. Then I'd say it looks like a painting, so why not tie it with paint? It's a female model, so female and then model as well. It's shot in studio, so studio. It has a black background, so black background, and then type enter. So there, as you can see, we've got a few different keywords. So now if we were to try and search for a certain picture, we could simply click on the loop here in the browser tab and then search with a keyword. So let's say beauty and then enter. And as you can see, I've got the only single shot that's tagged with beauty. If by accident you misspelled a word, you can always go back and just edit the keyword. You don't need to remove it and then retype it. So let's say, for example, I didn't want to type in makeup, but makeup artist. So let's right click on makeup and then rename. And now I can type in makeup artist and enter, and the keyword has changed. If you want to remove it, right click and remove selected keywords, or simply click the small cross at the end of the keyword and you can simply remove it from the list. Capture One will ask you if you're sure that you want to remove it. If you are, just go ahead and click OK. And now the keyword is removed. Using just the keyword tool is great, but you can actually make it even better by using the keyword library. So let's try and see how that works. The keyword library is found just below the keywords tool, so still in the same tab as before. And as you can see now, I've got only one library. It's the session keywords. So if I click on it to unfold the session keywords, as you can see, I've got all the keywords plus the ones I've either renamed or removed. The session keywords are found only in this session. So for example, if I type in more keywords for different pictures that are found in this session, I won't be able to access them from another session. For that, I need to create a personal library or custom library, and then I'll be able to access it from different sessions. So let's try and create a new library. So now if you want to create a new library, you simply go up to the top right corner, click on the three dots, and then create keyword library. You can either create a new one, which will allow you to type in new keywords manually, or you can import keywords from different sources. So one of them would be a keyword text file. Another solution would be the MediaPro vocabulary file if you still use MediaPro, or you can import it from a Capture One catalog or Capture One session. So here, let's try and click new. And we can now type in a library name. So let's say this is for beauty work. So I'm going to type in beauty work. You don't have to type it in all caps like I did. I just find it easier to read when I have tons and tons of libraries available. So let's click on create here. And now we can find the new beauty work library. It's currently empty, so we need to add new keywords in it so that we can start using it. So let's click on the plus at the end of the line, and we can now enter new keywords by simply typing in the keywords and separating them by a simple comma. It could be anything from the product you use to the makeup artist you work with, or the model name, or the model's agency, really anything that helps you find your pictures. So let's type in paint like I did before, then comma, add colorful because I think it's a colorful makeup. And if I forget keywords or need more for future shots, I can always come back to the library and add new keywords. So I don't need to create a comprehensive library the first time I create it. I just need to add the keywords that I need right now. Then let's say female and model and studio, black background, seamless backdrop, single light, flash strobe, and let's click create. So now if I open up the Beautywork library, and as you can see here, I've got a couple of keywords that are lighter than others. So the lighter ones are actually the ones that are already applied to the picture. So because we created keywords manually before, Capture One is going to recognize if those keywords are matching the one we have in the library. So here we've got black background that's already used, we've got female that's already used, model as well, and studio too. So we can add the others by simply clicking on it, and it will simply add them to the list of keywords for the picture. If you want to go one step further or change the IPTC data of your files, then you can use the metadata tool in Capture One. So let's see how this one works. So if you go in the metadata tab, just like we were before to edit the keywords and the keyword library, you will find at the bottom a tool called metadata. So let's close the keywords and the keyword library and open up the metadata tool. So here you've got a couple of sections which display all the information related to your shot. Most of them are not editable except for rating, color tag, and the file name. But then if I go lower, I'll find all the IPTC fields. So this is where you can add some information if you need it. For example, you can change the copyright, or you can add a status or describe the picture, and actually some of the IPTC fields can be used as token when exporting your files or when renaming them. So it could be useful in some cases if you want to keep everything organized, but I'd say IPTC fields don't need to be filled up for every single shot. Instead, you can create presets so that it will fill only the necessary fields, such as copyright or the place where you created the picture, or your website, email, and contact information. So for example, for this file, if I were to fill in the different fields that I usually would, I would add information for the creator, and then add my job, and then my address if that's needed. I don't always add it, but sometimes I do. And then country as well. Let's add my email and my website. Now from here, I can actually create a preset so that I don't have to type in that information every single time. So let's go back up and click on the three lines and save user preset. When clicking on save user preset, you can actually pick which fields you want to save. So in this case, I don't want to save the rating, the color tag, or the keywords, but only creator, job title, city, state, province, postal code, country, emails, and websites. So let's click save, and I'll call it simply Quentin, so I remember that it's when I personally shoot a picture and not someone else, and it does include all my contact information. So now if I go to another picture, and as you can see here, I don't have any information in the contact fields. So let's go back up to the three lines and click Quentin, and now all the information is back like for the previous shot. One thing that's interesting as well, if you are using user presets, you can actually stack them. So if you have a preset that's created for a specific series of images and one that's created for just the author information, then you can use multiple presets just to apply metadata. So here, what you need to do for that is simply go back to the three lines and click Stack Presets. If you've got the tick before Stack Presets, that's fine. You can add different presets and they will just be combined together. So now you know how to edit a picture, you know how to add keywords, to change the metadata if you need to. So let's see how we can actually archive the pictures by using a catalog. Catalogs are a bit different from sessions, but not so much. So you'll see that many things are similar, but there are a few differences that are worth knowing, just so that you can create either a catalog or a session depending on your needs. So let's go ahead and create a new catalog. So to create a new catalog, we have to go to File and then New Catalog. So for example, here, let's say it's for all of our archives. So let's click that and place it wherever we want to. So in this case, I'm going to leave it to the default path, which is the one I use for any of my personal catalog or session. Just like for sessions, we have the choice to use template. We haven't talked about templates yet. We will later on in this tutorial. For now, just leave it to blank or none. And we are not going to take up any new window. We just want one Capture One window. And so let's click OK. The new catalog is created, and as you can see, the interface is extremely similar to what we're used to when we used session up until now. So there are a few differences here. As you can see in the library is a bit different. So you don't have the capture, select, trash, and output folder, but instead you've got catalog collections, user collections, and folders. So the system files are not accessible anymore, and you will only get access to those different options. One way to use catalogs is to archive your sessions. So you can actually import sessions in your catalog so that you've got just one master catalog in which you've got all your sessions, and then it's much easier to find different shoots or certain pictures. So let's import the two sessions we've created so far, the one from the editing until now and the other one from the tethering shoot. So let's go back to File and then Import Session. And here I've got my sessions actually already archived on an external hard drive because I'm done working with them. So let's go to my external hard drive here, and in the folder fstoppers, I'll have different sessions. So let's see what session I need to import here. So list, and then I'll import the tutorial. So let's click on the co-session DB file, which contains all the settings of our editing and session, and click import. So now we've got a new user collection and it has the name of the session. So if I close that down, as you can see, I've got just a new user collection, and inside of it, I've got the different session folders as well as the session albums. So those were the smart albums that were created by default, and then session favorites because I created a new favorite for the export we did. So you can find everything in here, and then if you go down, you can find under folders the different hard drives and location where your files are located. So as you can see here, we've got in catalog as well as the external hard drive on which I've got my sessions. So if I open up the hard drive, I'll get access to the structure and find all the files that have been imported. You may be wondering why in the folders section there is a in catalog section. That's simply because you can actually import files into your catalog, and so those files are called managed files. So if you want to import files into the catalog and don't have to bother knowing where they are located on your disk, you can simply import this way. So let's try and bring back the import dialog we used at the beginning of the tutorial and see how that works. So I'm still using the import fstopper folder that you should have downloaded with this tutorial. And let's click on one picture to see the different options we have here. So destination here, it's currently set to current location. So that means it won't be moved on the hard drive. It would simply import the file and link it to where it is. So that's a reference file, meaning if you move it in the Finder, Capture One will just lose it and not know where it is. You will have to relocate it and tell Capture One where the new file is. The other option is inside the catalog, and when you do that, the file will be moved inside the catalog package, meaning you won't see it from the Finder or the Windows Explorer, but Capture One will know exactly where it is, and you won't have to bother knowing where the file is or relocating it. So for those of you who are used to Aperture or Photos on macOS, you'll probably know what the managed files are, because that's pretty much how Photos and Aperture manage the files. They just put it inside a catalog and you don't have to see or care where the files are placed. However, if you're used to Lightroom, you'll probably prefer the reference file because then you can create your structure on either Windows Explorer or the Finder, place your files wherever you want, and just link them back in Capture One like you would in Lightroom. The other options that are available here are pretty much all the ones we had when importing files in the session. So we're just going to cancel the import. It was really just to show you how you could import files inside the catalog or just leave them to the current location. So let's cancel and let's keep on going and discover more about catalogs. If you look closely at the hard drive I have, at the backup 2017-2, you will see a small green icon at the end of the line. It's just to indicate that the hard drive is actually live. So if I were to unplug it now, the icon would change and now I would say that the hard drive is offline. So before we unplug it and see how that works, let's import another session. So let's go back to File and then Import Session, and here let's pick another session. Select the session file, import, and it should create a new user collection. So each new session that you import will show up as a user collection. So it's extremely simple to keep everything organized. So now let's unplug the hard drive and see how we can still work on those files even though they are offline. So now the hard drive is offline, and as you can see, I've got a small red icon instead of the green one we had before. And if I go back to my session, let's say the first one, which contains all the files we've used so far, if I go to the session folders and then capture, all the files are still accessible, but it's written that it's offline. So I can still edit them if I want to, and when I'll plug my hard drive back, the settings will then be applied. So if you want to export a full resolution file, you won't be able to do so before you plug your hard drive back. Some of the features may also not work properly when the hard drive is not plugged in because some of the tools of Capture One may need to have access to the raw files to be working properly. For example, some of the features of the layers will not work correctly if you don't have the raw files accessible when creating the layers. Another thing that's important to note is when you import sessions into a catalog, the session is actually not altered. So if you change anything to a file in the catalog after importing your session, so for example here I've just added 0.35 of a stop, and if I were to go back to my session, the settings would not have changed. The settings are just different here in the catalog, but they are not changed in the session. And that's extremely important to know because if you want to go back to your session and edit something, you'll then need to import back the session in the catalog to get your settings as they are in the session. So just make sure you import your sessions in the catalog once you're done working on them so you don't end up having different versions of the same file. So what we just saw here with the offline files is actually one of the biggest advantages of catalogs over sessions. Sessions are great because it's just a small structure, it's easy to move from a computer to another, you can take them on an external hard drive and just copy and paste them on different computers and edit them wherever you need. Catalogs are great when you have long-term projects or projects that have many files and that you may store on an external hard drive or a NAS or a server that you don't have access everywhere you go. So for example, when I edit weddings, I tend to create a catalog so that I can store all my files on a NAS, but then I can still work on my laptop wherever I go. However, if I'm shooting beauty and shooting tethered in the studio, I'll create a session so that I've got all the structure I need to shoot tethered. Another advantage of the catalog is when you use it to archive all your files, then you can use the user collections to keep everything organized. So let's see another example of how to use user collections to keep everything organized. For example, I personally like to import all of my sessions in one catalog and then create different user collections. So let's say one for my beauty portfolio, one for my wedding portfolio, or different uses that I may have of different pictures. So here, if we go back to the library and down to the user collection. So we can create a new one. So let's close the 2 sessions we have here and click on the plus. And if you hold the click, you can see album, smart album, project, and group. So in an album, you can move anything in there manually. It won't move the picture per se on hard drive. It will just create a link to the file, and so that you can have it in different albums. Smart albums work the same way in catalogs as they do in sessions. So for example, what we saw with the session and the default smart albums and rating will be the same here. So for example, if we create a smart album that will select all 5-star pictures, it will work just the same way as it did in the session. Then project is the same thing as what we have here with the session. So it contains different groups. So for example, the session folder is a group, and then capture is an album. So let's create a new album. So click on the plus, then album, and let's name it portfolio. I'm going to leave the options as they are, so unticked both, and just press OK. Here we've got a new album and it's called portfolio. I'm going to move it to the top. And then from here, I can just go to all images and drag the images I'd like to use in my portfolio. So let's say I want the first one here to be in my portfolio, so I'll just drag and drop into portfolio. As you can see, the arrow that shows up just indicates that it's creating a link and not actually moving physically the file. So I'll just drag and drop, and now in portfolio I do have one shot, and if I go back to my session, it hasn't moved, it's still in the capture folder. So for example, in this case, we've got a portfolio that's created for us and extremely easy to update. And if we have to go back and find what pictures we've got in our portfolio, for example, for the website, or to print it sometime during the year, then it's extremely easy to find all the pictures that we need to print or to put on the website.